Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Patina'd podcast. So what I wanted to do before the episode gets started is I just wanted to front load this information. My audio sucks. I got a new microphone and I was trying to figure out how to use it. In this episode, we had a problem with my computer shutting down because it was too hot in my gym/studio. And then I had to take it to another location. David had to do a whole different location change. And so there's a bunch of different things. It's definitely not going to take away from the content that is shared. The content that is shared from David is fantastic. Young man, getting sober, super young, and using that as a way to leverage himself. And it's great insight for anybody of sobriety, but especially for anybody that is young. So please forget my audio. The good thing is I don't talk very much in the episode. Most of the episode is David talking because he was the guest. So thank you for listening. You're going to love this episode.
And you seem like a psychopath and exactly the person that I want to talk to.
Yeah, I like the word psychopath.
Daddy say when we grow up, you'll understand when you're older. Guess I'm still a kid, I don't know it. If I'll ever let go of this, say goodbye to the old me. We ain't friends anymore, you don't know me. I know I could die any moment. If I do, just remember this. Yeah, handouts create lazy people I'm not impressed with. You want something in life, then why don't you go and get it? Actions speak louder than words.
I dropped out of college, I went home, and basically just had a one-track mind of I'm just gonna take the easy way out of life, and I don't really care about myself, and I don't really care about anybody else. Went to multiple psychiatric wards, went to every rehab in the general vicinity around my house. I would either leave or get kicked out. I've never had a legal drink, which is another thing that's wild. I got sober right after my birthday, so I celebrated a year, and then I celebrated my 21st birthday sober. The beauty about getting sober is literally you have blank canvas, especially if you're young. You can literally do whatever you want. Literally, there's no distractions. I just put this on my account. I was like, sober is a synonym for focus. You're dialed. If you're sober, you're dialed. You can take on anything. It's just such a leg up, especially if you're young. Youth and sobriety is a wicked combination. Your first question, what made you switch? Well, this was a checkpoint. This was a big thing. And it was okay, I need to start doing harder things. I need to start doing things that allow me to grow at an exponential rate. A lot of people in my life hold me accountable and they're not scared to hurt my feelings. And that's how I want my life. That's how I want my life. It sucks sometimes to be the person to always get called out, but I would rather people hurt my feelings than step on the grave of my untapped into potential down the road. And I'm very clear about that. That's the thing about getting sober is you try different identities until you find one that works. I tried so many things, dude. I tried so many. It was just trial and error. And I tried and I didn't like it. And then I tried and I didn't like it. And now I'm in a place I feel where I have a pretty good idea of what I'm aiming at in life. And what I'm aiming at with my sobriety. And that's a very important thing because that gives me purpose and that gives me meaning. And those two things fulfill my life so much today. And they keep me excited and they keep me enthusiastic. I took this addictive personality that I had that was once channeled in a terrible direction. And I just pointed it in a different direction towards something that and this is the key, something that serves others. And I'm convinced, dude, that it's a superpower.
Okay, give me one more.
I'll give you two more.
The Patina'd podcast is about the earned wisdom found in pain. It's about chasing failure, catching it, and using that as an opportunity. It's about scar tissue and sinew. It's about stretch marks and dented fenders and refusing to hide them. It's about pushing our insecurities and shame to the forefront instead of behind us. Instead of seeing rust as something that compromises a structure's integrity, we choose to see it as the grit that builds character. This is the Patina'd podcast.
All right, so welcome to another episode of the Patina'd podcast. Today I have David Millar. And quick introduction, David is an ultra runner. I would say you're probably more of a hybrid athlete that does ultra running and 100-milers and that sort of thing. But you do a lot of lifting as well, it appears. And so, yeah, you're probably more of in the hybrid athlete mode, which is kind of what I like to see. And in terms of balance and longevity of life, I guess we can talk about that as we go. But and then you're also a recovering addict, which is I can also relate to. I'm having 17 years of sobriety myself, and a medical student at Penn State currently. So I have some questions for you with that as well. So yeah, a lot of things we can get into. You got a lot of stuff going on in your life, and you're really well known for your motivational page on Instagram. It's got a ton of followers, and the content is always spot on. Like I feel like there's hasn't been one video that I didn't relate to or one post that I didn't relate to. So yeah, really, really like it. So yeah, dude, I think as we get going here, what I like to do with a lot of people is just kind of go through some of the backstory. Essentially, the question is like, what caused you to, how do I want to say it? What happened in your life that caused you to so fiercely want to go in the opposite direction of whatever you were going through? Like what was going on in your life that caused you to be like, okay, this is unacceptable. I have to change course and become this person that is extremely intentional, extremely consistent, and all those sort of things.
Yeah. So I don't think it could be pinpointed to like a specific moment. I think it's more just like a trajectory, and there was like multiple like spots and moments and like times in my life and people in my life that like maybe said something to me or something happened to me, and then like it like gradually like adjusted my mindset and my belief system. And like to be honest with you too, like I still feel like that's happening to me, right? Like I'm still trying to be very open-minded to like opportunities in my life and chances where I can grow, like not just like materially, but also, more importantly, like internally. So yeah, so to try to pick out like a moment in time where like I just switched would be like impossible, but I can give you a little bit of a backstory. I grew up on the beach on the East Coast in New Jersey. I went to high school. I had a great life, man. Like I wasn't like poor. I wasn't rich. Had two parents, had like a little bit of a dysfunctional household, just with like, there's alcoholism in my family, and it was never really like talked about. It was never really like pointed out. It was never really, there was never a spotlight on it, not that like people tried to hide it, but it was also just like not like, we weren't intentional about like being careful about like, getting into the wrong kind of lifestyle or the wrong kind of habits. So I grew up, some dysfunction in my household, definitely didn't have like a normal upbringing, but didn't have like a terrible upbringing either. And I went to high school. My high school was literally right on the beach, man. Like it's right on the beach. It's like the closest high school in the United States to the beach, like in the whole entire United States. So my high school was like a movie. I like, we hit the beach all the time after school. It was just like a vacation town. Everybody was super into just hanging out all the time. There was people that were like pushing it. There was like some cool athletes up at my school, but that wasn't really like my thing when I was in high school. I was very popular, and I wanted to just enjoy my life, or what I thought was enjoying my life. And that was, drinking all the time with my friends and throwing parties at my house, and just these like very pursuit of happiness lifestyle. And, eventually like just the way that I'm wired is very like all or nothing, black and white, very like extreme. Like I love taking things to the extreme. And at the time I didn't have the self-awareness of that, right? Like I just thought I was just operating, like I didn't know that's how I was. But like when I think back, man, like I used to love to like make music with some of my buddies, and like I loved it so much that like I went and I like built a recording studio in my house, like studio foam, like walk-in customizable, like microphone stand, like studio monitors, like LED lights, just like totally went all in on that.
All right. So sorry to the audience. I had to cut in real quick because there's a change of scene that happened for some reason on my end. There was some technical difficulties and the recording just stopped mid interview. So that was weird, but we're back. So David, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead and jump right back into your story.
Yeah. So I was at college and having problems, and just, it wasn't getting any better. And I made the decision to kind of just like go all in with what I thought worked. And basically what was like the easiest solution for me. And very quickly, like I just was a tornado to everybody around me. I left school, I dropped out of college, I went home and basically just had like a one-track mind of like, I'm just gonna take the easy way out of life and I don't really care about myself and I don't really care about anybody else. Went to multiple like psychiatric wards, went to like every rehab in the general vicinity around my house. I would either like leave or get kicked out. And yeah, it was just like taking a constant beating kind of every time I would like go to like a detox and get clean for a couple days and then like come back and like just not just like fuck it off. And eventually like it was just getting to a point where it was so unmanageable and I had no resources left and it's very hard to keep like using and drinking when you don't have a lot of resources. At least for me it was. So my family decided to send me down to Florida and I went down to Florida. And I think the first time I went down to Florida, I came back and I just like messed it up. And then I went down to Florida for a second time and I went down there and like the first thing that like changed was like the people that I was at this detox with were young, like they were young people. And I had never seen that before. I was always in detox with like people that were a lot older than me. I was like 19 years old at the time. And I just remember like a group of young people at detox and like not even just a group of young people, but a group of young people that were like about it. And I like instantly just like my mindset just changed just by being around those people.
This is our third scene change now. So yeah, I think my computer overheated because I'm doing my interviews in a shipping container, which now is a sauna because it's summertime. So I think maybe that's why we're having technical difficulties. We're about to find out. All right. So again, man, very sorry for the unprofessionalism, but let's get back into it, David.
Yeah. So, I came home and life was out of control and went to Florida a couple times, went to a structured living out in LA and changed my life there, started being around the right people. And yeah, I mean, from there, my life kind of just took off and, sobriety happened. And first year and a half, maybe even 2 years was just hell for me. I just didn't think that I was ever going to be normal again and woke up in a lot of fear every day and just kind of thought that that's just how life was going to be for the rest of it. And, it wasn't. You grow and you get through it and you establish yourself and you get to know yourself. So yeah, to answer your question, that felt like that was a long answer, but that was like where everything changed for me, was out there. And then from there, it was just like, well, what do I want to do with my life? And then for a while, it was like, I just want to surf. I surfed a lot. I grew up surfing, surfed in LA a lot. And then I was like, maybe it's like not enough like challenge for me. So then I was like, maybe I'll go back to school. So then I went back to like nursing school at the time. I actually went back to Philly. I was like a year sober, was staying sober on a college campus and just, doing the nursing thing. And then that kind of like just wasn't rubbing me the right way. And then I was like, maybe, I might be able to like get into med school and ended up like doing that whole thing. And yeah, the beauty about getting sober is like, you can like literally you have blank canvas, especially if you're young. You can literally do whatever you want. Literally. Like there's no distractions. Like I just put this on my account. I was like, sober is a synonym for focused. Like you're dialed. If you're sober, you're dialed. Like you can take on anything. Like it's just such a leg up, especially if you're young. Youth and sobriety is a wicked combination. And like if you can harness it when you're young, you can do whatever you want.
All right, real quick. So in the theme of resilience, I have 2 challenges for you, the listener. The first challenge: if you find this interview insightful or interesting, you really like the content that is coming in, please like, follow, share, subscribe, all of those things within whatever platform you use. Tell a neighbor, tell a friend, talk to your cat about it. Like, let's get this out there. This show is real tiny, and the interviewees that come on this show and share their insight, their wisdom, it can help a lot of people. So the more that it can get out, the better that it can serve the mission that I'm trying to do, which is to normalize chasing failure. So the second challenge that I have for you is to invest 15 minutes of your time into a timeshare opportunity that I have for you. I'm just kidding. I'm not selling you a timeshare opportunity. But what I am doing is I want you to take 15 minutes of your time and invest that into another episode that I have done. Please help me know. What I'm hoping for is for you to come in the comments section and give me some good feedback. Maybe scrutinize me a little bit. Let me know how I can be better as an interviewer to help this show be more palatable for you. But this isn't all about me. How did you like the guest? What were some of the insights that you got from the guests? Leave that in the comments section as well. This is all good stuff. So within the theme of resilience, those are the two challenges that I have for you. Help me, help you, help the show. Let's get better. Let's keep growing. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I can relate to that totally. So I was 24 when I got sober. And I'm always a little bit insecure when I'm sharing that with clients. When I'm sharing that with young clients, I say that insecurity because I'm trying to help steer them in that direction. But when I'm saying that to older clients, I'm afraid they're going to be like, well, like, were you even an addict? Like, you're so young. Like,
Yeah.
like you were just getting diapers off, like, big deal. So, but yeah, I can relate to that. I guess some of the challenges when I was getting sober 17 years ago, some of the challenges to getting sober as a 24-year-old would be different than the person in more current days, or maybe in the last 3 or 4 years, getting sober as a young person with the dynamics, right? First of all, there wasn't fentanyl around, which probably saved my life when I was getting sober. And there wasn't a bunch of other stuff that was going on. Vape was still considered too effeminate when it was just starting. When I was getting sober, it was still like something you would make fun of somebody for. It wasn't socially acceptable. So I never got into vaping, even as a transition within nicotine when I was getting sober. But yeah, like it's even, but still even 17 years ago, getting sober at a young age, you have that voice in the back of your head that is like, well, you're so young, like forever, really forever. And you have that kind of voice. And I realized it wasn't just because I was young that I was having that voice, because now when I'm working with a 60-year-old, they have the same voice. Really forever? Like, come on, like really forever? But yeah, so let's transition into some of that, like some of the insight that you have into, like you said, you were sober. So like, I would imagine the first thing, even just as I said that, as I'm starting this question, the first thing that my addict brain just said was, you haven't even got a chance to drink in a bar.
Yeah.
Like, bro, come on. So what is that like for you, being so young, getting sober, and then sustaining sobriety through all of the temptations and going into college, all the temptations in college and all that kind of stuff?
Dude, it's so crazy that you say that. I had the same thoughts going through my head, and it was just like, that was a big thing for me. And another big thing for me too was like, when you go away to like detox and rehab, especially going to a lot of rehabs, like you hear people's stories and they're so much worse than yours. And you're just like, man, do I really need to be here? But that was such a good point, because it's like, no matter how old I am, like that's my brain's going to tell me that. Right. And that, dude, it's crazy. Like I've never like had a legal drink, which is like another thing that's wild. I celebrated my 21st birthday. Like I got sober like right after my birthday. So like I celebrated like a year, and then I celebrated like my 21st or my 21st birthday sober. And yeah, it was just like a lot of temptations, like with everything. I mean, even just opening up my social media when I was like in LA and seeing all my old friends, not my old friends, but like, my friends from home doing their thing back here, like living like a normal 20, 21-year-old lifestyle. And it's just like, it's just hard, because you're just like, man, like I found so much enjoyment in that. Like there was a reason that I drank, and it worked for me for a while, and it gave me so much. And to imagine what your life's gonna look like without that, and to be like in your young 20s too on top of that, and like just like you feel so lost. And I think that was like a part of like the pain that I went through, was just like not really knowing how I was gonna like make friends and get in a relationship. Like a relationship's we could spend the whole podcast talking about like relationships being young and sober, because that's another really difficult thing. Cause it's just like part of being young and part of having fun. It's just like going out to the bars all the time and like, drinking, and that's normal and that's cool for people that do that. But I knew I couldn't do it kind of like I had tried to go into rehab so many times, and like I just kind of knew that like I was gonna have to like the pieces were starting to come together that like this is just how I operate. I take things to the next level, and just alcohol just sits with me in a way that just like it's just too good for me, and like I will like use it until the wheels fall off. So yeah, I mean, the other thing too is like when you stay sober for a while and you get through like that initial like 6 months, 1 year, year and a half, like you really do get to like understand yourself a lot. Like it's all just like self-development at the end of the day. And like you really do like you don't have that crutch anymore. Like when I went out to social events and stuff, or when I had to make new friends, or when I had to go back to school, like I didn't have that like crutch anymore where I could just lean on alcohol and like go and talk to everybody, go and talk to girls. Like I had to figure out a way to do that without alcohol. And like the only way to do that is to go through the pain. Like that's it. Like there's no other way to do that. And once I started figuring that out, that's when like my mindset your first question, like what made you switch? Well, this was a checkpoint. Was a big thing. And it was like, okay, like I need to start like doing harder things. I need to start doing things that like allow me to grow at like an exponential rate, because that's just going to make me feel better when I'm need to go to a party or go on a first date or need to do a job interview, like all these normal things. Like if I can like find ways to kind of self-develop and like understand myself more and get comfortable with myself, then like I know that's going to benefit me in the long run. So yeah, that was a big thing. And then staying sober at college, dude, was like that was crazy, because I went to college and like I still wanted to be the guy that like, we talk about like blank canvas when you get sober. Well, this was like another one of my ideas, was like I wanted to be the guy that still went to frat parties on like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and drank water and Red Bull and still could be the life of the party. And dude, I did that for a while. Like I did that. Like I had a solid group of friends that knew I didn't drink. And like we went out on Friday and Saturday and we stayed up till like 4 a.m. and like I was playing flip cup with water and I was like trying to have fun and I was doing all these things. And like, dude, one night I remember like clear as day. One night I was still a nursing student at the time. And one night I came back home. It's like 4 a.m. We're in our living room. I'm like dead sober. And I'm just sitting there and I'm just like, dude, like, this is just stupid. Like, what am I doing? Like, I'm just trying to like do this just to like look a certain way, and just like, I just felt like I was holding on to the past too much, and I was trying to like make something work that just like wasn't going to work. And yeah, I was sitting there at 4 a.m, dead sober, and like my whole next day was going to be ruined, hungover or not. Like if you're up till 4 a.m, your next day is going to be ruined, even if you're sober, because like you're not getting any sleep. And yeah, I was just like, you know what, dude, like I'm just going to go hard at school. And then like a week or two after that was when I decided to try to get into medical school. I was just like done with that. I was just, and that's like the thing about getting sober is like you try different identities until you find one that works. Like I tried so many things, dude. I tried so many. Like it was just trial and error. And I tried and I didn't like it. And then I tried and I didn't like it. And now I'm in a place I feel like where I have a pretty good idea of like what I'm aiming at in life, and what I'm aiming at with my sobriety. And that's a very important thing, because that gives me purpose and that gives me meaning. And those two things fulfill my life like so much today, and they keep me excited and they keep me enthusiastic. And the other thing I did too, that I'll say, when I went back to college, I knew I wasn't going to be drinking. So, and this kind of is what brought running into my life too. I was going back to college and my whole ideology was like, I guess I'll join the cross country team, because like I know those guys aren't really going to be drinking a lot, because I'd run cross country a little bit in high school. So I kind of knew what kind of guys were doing that. And yeah, it was great, dude. I walked on the team and like I started running, and running has helped me in so many ways. I mean, that introduced me to running and that was great. And then I also met like just the coolest guys, dude. And like they drank like sometimes, but like, dude, like they had like two drinks and then like went home. Like it was straight. It was like exactly what I needed. And like they're some of my closest buddies now, and they're all like savages. Like they're all like, some of them run ultras with me. Like Some of them are still like running like 5Ks and 10, which is just like intense, dude. And like I really am glad that I did that. And I think that was a really good move on my part too. I kind of just like did that off a whim, and it kind of just ended up working in my favor.
That's I think there's many parts within my story where too, like you, there's like little seeds that are planted here and there and little moments. And like the way I'll say it is like there's little opportunities to say yes over and over. And it would be like a door or a challenge or whatever. But you can begin to see this start to take place within the story that you're sharing here today, which is like these little opportunities and these little things where you're like, okay, how can I challenge myself here? Here's another way where I can challenge myself. And what I liked too is you had that moment while you're trying to still do the frat scene and still, let's just call it fun, right? Like you're still trying to have fun from a context standpoint, like what would have been normal within, your arena of being around other partiers and that sort of thing, and still trying to live that life, but live it in a sober way. And then have this realization like, man, I am not appropriately leveraging this gift that I'm giving myself, which is sobriety.
Spot on.
Yeah.
Spot on. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's and so then for the young person that might be listening to this that knows that they have a problem, maybe is thinking about sobriety, but doesn't want to be like this guy who's 41 and has been sober for 17 years and probably assuming that this guy doesn't have any fun whatsoever. They might be right. And then but then so like, what's that balance between, I guess the question is, what's that balance between leveraging the opportunity that you're giving yourself with sobriety while at the same time balancing that with fun that's appropriate for your age range?
Yeah, that's a really good question. First, I feel like my definition of fun has dramatically changed like throughout the course of my sobriety. So like my idea of fun is probably so far from the idea of like a normal 25-year-old's idea of fun. Like, dude, me and all my buddies, like we just went up to like probably like 3 weeks ago, we all go up to upstate New York and we run this like 50-mile race together, and we get a big Airbnb, and like it's a great time and I look forward to it. And like, but normally it's like everybody else is just like, why are you running like 50 miles? Like, it just seems like so like next level to a lot of people. But like me and all my friends, like we enjoy it. We have a great time. And it's like, it's one of the best days of the year for me. And it's just like really hard to explain that like question. I feel like, cause like my definition of fun has changed. And I feel like I had to go through the phase of like me still trying to hold on to like old ideas of fun. And I needed to like put myself in those situations to see that like I wasn't going to get fulfillment from it anymore. And I feel like there's no other way to really tell that to somebody. Like you just have to kind of experience it. And like gradually, like my idea of like, it's just all like the pursuit of happiness. Like that's what it was for me. It was just like the pursuit of happiness. And like, in my opinion, like that's just not the right way to go about life for me, because happiness is fleeting. Like happiness comes and goes. It's kind of similar to motivation. I feel so much more fulfilled when I live a life of purpose and meaning. That's why I always tell people, I'm always like, dude, do what gives you meaning. Don't do what makes you happy, because happiness comes and goes. Like happiness will, but if you're like, take advantage of the times that happiness is there. Like, I'm not saying don't, like, it's a great thing, but like, don't take your life and point it directly at happiness. Cause I feel like the more I tried to chase happiness directly, the further away I got from it. And that was never what I was trying to do. Like, I was just trying to capture it and have it forever, but that's not really the way life works. So when I started like turning my perspective to chasing purpose, meaning, and like a mission, like having like a mission for myself, like that's when I really started waking up every morning and staying excited and staying enthusiastic about the things that I was doing. So I don't really think like for like the young people out there, like I think it's just kind of like an experiential process. It's like sobriety is like not an academic process, unfortunately. A lot of people like to talk at meetings and like to spit the big, like regurgitate the big book at you. It's just like, this isn't an academic process. Like, you don't need somebody on a chalkboard telling you exactly what you did. It's experiential. You need to get out into the world. You need to put yourself in positions of uncomfortability. You need to kind of just do what you think is best in the moment and learn from it. That's what I did. So
Yeah, such good insight, dude. Like, and it took me, I mean, this probably took me a good 10 years of sobriety to learn what you just shared, and working in the mental health field and having the experience of my own mental health journey over the course of years to get the insight of what you just shared. So it's brilliant. So first off, let's talk about the first thing. So your view of fun adapts and changes based on the environment that you put yourself into. And so you put yourself in a different environment, and your dopamine system, because you're giving it the opportunity to run the way it's supposed to run, is going to find interest in something. It's going to find interest in something. And you happen to be somebody who knows he's an intense individual who finds meanings through challenge and purpose. So you happen to go find this route of ultra or running and all this sort of stuff. And now this is fun for you. I still can say running is fun for me, but that's a story for another day. It's still in that challenge mode where it's something that I dislike doing, but I do it for the sake of doing hard things. But like, for you to be able to find, I can see where you find happiness in the whole aspect of getting the group together, getting an Airbnb and making it like that. That sounds really fun to me too. The insight for the young person who's looking to try to shift, whether it's in sobriety or maybe they're not an addict or an alcoholic, but they're trying to shift their mindset into just taking on challenging things. Fun adapts with you as you solidify your identity. And you can only start solidifying that identity by giving yourself the opportunity to think for yourself and not think like a tribe or think within the mindset of other people's thinking patterns. Yeah. So that's great. And then this idea that you have on happiness now, like, this is something that, again, maybe fell upon me about 7 years ago, where I'm looking at happiness. I'm like, well, why do I feel so repelled by whenever somebody says, just find your true authentic self, or be happy, go do things that make you happy. I was always like kind of like repelled by it. Not always, but in recent years. And I'm like, well, why am I repelled by it? So I'm kind of processing it. And I'm like, well, what does happiness even mean? Like, what does it mean? And so I started looking up the definition. Well, the definition of it's hap. Hap is the root word, and hap means to be lucky or fortunate. And okay, so if you're chasing something that is luck or fortune, good luck, because you're going to be miserable 90% of the time at best, right? Like, if you're constantly seeking this thing that makes you feel over the moon because you happened upon it through luck, and that's your only route toward getting enjoyment out of life, that's a problem. And essentially it's just playing a scratcher ticket, and every day you wake up, you play a scratcher ticket. You're like, yeah, not my day today. Gonna be a terrible day. Wake up next day, not my day today. And then once a month you land on it and you're like, okay, it's gonna be my day. So happiness at its core seems to be a very problematic way of doing things. And then what I landed upon is the same thing you landed upon is, well, that's the root problem, especially for an addict and alcoholic, but and people that have other various forms of immediate gratifying behaviors and escapism behaviors. It is seeking with the less, like, as little effort as possible, seeking this thing that's going to get the most flavor out of that lemon, but the most little effort as possible. Right? Like, how can I get as much with doing as little as possible, as much dopamine with doing as little as possible? And that becomes problematic, because that becomes a way of life for people. You do that and you find a solution, and then that solution turns into habits and turns into a whole lot of bad, because nothing else works for you other than that solution. So
exactly.
So then what, for me, like I work with my clients, I call it the happiness fallacy. And I work with them. I say, okay, well, what's the thing? And I want your thoughts on this. So, and I'm like, well, why doesn't happiness work? Is because it's outside of your control. Okay, well, what can you do that can give you enjoyment that's within your control? And it's exactly that word, joy, right? And joy is derived from gratitude. And gratitude is something that you can do that is action oriented every day. You can force it. You can make it happen every day. Even you can fake it till you make it with gratitude.
Yeah,
I'm not a big fan of fake it till you make it, but you can with gratitude. You can make it happen.
for sure.
And so enjoyment would then be the opposite, or the thing that's not the opposite, but the thing that is more sustainable. You know, that's my thoughts.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts are just that, like you, I spent a lot of time, like, I feel like living my life under the wrong kind of belief of happiness. And dude, I mean, I'm more happy. I think, like I said, like, I'm just going to stick with what I was saying. Like, happiness is a byproduct of living a purposeful life. And I'm more happy than I've ever been right now. And I'm not chasing it directly. I mean, if anything, I'm chasing like the opposite of it, right? Like I'm running like 100-mile races. I'm like going to med. Like it's just, I'm chasing like challenge because like I know what it does for me. I know like the delayed gratification aspect of life just because like I've experimented with it and it's served me and I know that it sucks, but I know that like if you're in the abyss for a long period of time, you will eventually see the light and you will find a way out. So, yeah, I mean, for anybody that's like young and trying to get sober, I mean, sobriety is another thing that is like the total opposite of happiness. I mean, it's like you have to go through this like initial 6 months where life is just for me. I mean, I know people that like handled it way better than I did. I had a shitty like first couple
The
months of
first 6
sobriety,
months
but
for me, the first
dude,
6 months were horrific. Yeah.
dude, I felt like I was gonna die every day. Like it was awful. And but like I needed that and that showed me that like pain is a teacher, you know, and it just it gave me something. I never done anything challenging in my life before and it gave me that. It introduced me to that. And dude, I get so like fired up now and like I get so happy like because of things that go on in my life. Like I feel like I'm now able to just like live the life that I wanted to live all along, but I just never knew what it was until I like got sober, understood myself, and then like, you know, made a proper plan of like, well, I'm an extreme guy. I want to do something extreme. I want to do important work. You know, I want to be fit, you know, set all these goals and stuff. And then started like pointing my life and my sobriety at those goals. And like, I mean, dude, you know, like finishing a run, like some days, like when it's like a hard day, like finishing a run, dude, sometimes it's better than any drug that I ever put in my body. The feeling that I get crossing the finish line of a 100-mile race, like knowing that like I was never like really destined to like be in a position to run race. I mean, at the life I was living, like I was gonna die, you know? So like I was never really even I mean, I believe like God like, you know, had all this in store for me, but like, you know, there was a time in my life where like I didn't know if I was gonna like live a long life. And so to be in the position of like finishing long races, to be in the position of getting accepted into medical school, I mean, that was like it's just, dude, it's way better than any of that shit on the street because like you wake up the next day and it's not gone, you know? Like it's everlasting and it's with you forever. It's part of your identity now. Like my identity now is like I can do things that I believe I can like do like hard things. Like I know when something comes my way in life, like I know I can handle it if I approach it with the right mindset because like, you know, I live this life of like delayed gratification and I have all this experience under my belt of like, you know, what happens if I just put my head down and stay in the trenches for a little bit.
Well, let's talk a little bit about med school and your experience with this. So, how long have you been in med school? Is
Dude,
that relatively new?
Yeah, I haven't started yet. I start in like
Oh,
2
okay.
weeks. So
Okay.
yeah,
Very
yeah,
cool. So, yeah, you got that right on the horizon. I'm maybe it's something where, you know, 2 years from now we can check back in and do another interview if I still
for
got this
sure.
going on. But
Yeah.
because I'm interested, it's like, I'm one of the, and I don't say this to pat myself on the back. Like, I hope it doesn't come off in that way where I'm like bragging. But okay, so when I started working in the addiction field, I started off from a really humble place. I was like, I'm gonna make $20 an hour, and like I was telling my like fiance and soon to be wife, like, hey, I hope you're comfortable with beans and rice for the rest of your life, because if you want to be a she's a registered nurse, and she's like, I want to be a stay-at-home mom. I'm like, okay, but like, just know I'm not going to make any money. Like, I'm doing this because I feel like this is what I'm supposed to do. This is God's purpose for me. So this is why I'm doing this thing, but I'm not going to make any money. And so I kind of came at this working in this field in a very humble way. And I think a lot of people do when they start off these things with their mind in the right place, wanting to help people. And then I think it could be several factors, but ultimately money, maybe politics, kind of sways the way people's minds can go when they start working in the field of helping other people. And for me, I think if I had to do a self-assessment, it hasn't happened for me, right? Like, I've had these opportunities where I got to be mentored by the right person at the right time, and doors opened at the right time, and enough people I had enough success within my field and word of mouth and stuff, and my practice. I started my own private practice, and it's phenomenal, right? It does really good.
Yeah, nice.
But I guess I say all that to say, like my intention was always like, especially when I started my private practice, it's like, okay, I'm going to have a very small caseload, because what I've seen in my experience up until getting here was like, you can have somebody with all the right intentions, and then finances come in the way and they're struggling. And then all of a sudden, a program is willing to take on a client they shouldn't take on, or a patient they shouldn't take on. And they're like they just get swooned by money, and then their ethics get thrown out. And that happens more than not in what I've seen. That happens more often than not. So what I was going to ask you within the medical field, and I guess maybe I'll ask you in 2 years from now or 3 years from now, it's like, like, first, what kind of schooling did they teach you on psychology and mental health? What kind of schooling did they teach you on nutrition? What kind of schooling did they teach you on physical health? Because these are the things where you hear a lot of doctors coming out now where they're saying, oh, they don't teach you anything about nutrition in medical school. They don't teach you anything. And about 10 years ago, before you have doctors like in more recent last 5 years or so coming out and saying this, before that, there were doctors, particularly Dr. Dan Siegel, who said, yeah, they didn't teach you anything from a psychology standpoint. And when he went to medical school, they taught you how to compartmentalize emotional connection with patients, so that you want to get attached, and you would actually detach yourself from their emotions. So anyway, long-winded way of saying, I guess I was going to ask you, because I thought you had already been in for a year or so, but yeah. So where do you see yourself going within medical school? Then I guess that's the way I'll sway that question. Is that going to be a focus where you want to try to integrate that into your medical schooling, and what do you hope to do?
So I totally agree with you on that front, because so to become a medical doctor, I'm not sure you know the process, but it's 4 years of undergrad. So you do 4 years of undergrad, you get a bachelor's in something. It could be whatever. My bachelor's was in psychology. My first 2 years of undergrad, I was in nursing, but I switched my last two when I decided I wanted to change. And then you do another 4 years of medical school if you get into medical school. So your first 2 years of medical school are usually like textbook, you're learning stuff, you're in the classroom, and your last 2 years are clinical rotation. So you're seeing what kind of doctor you want to be, what kind of field you want to go into. Do you want to do like clinical stuff? Do you want to do primary care? Do you want to do surgery? So once you graduate medical school, then you go into something called residency. And residency is like your hands-on training, and could be anywhere from 3 to 7 years. So if you want to be like a primary care doctor, then you're looking at like 3 to 4 years of residency after medical school. If you're looking to be like some sort of surgeon or like a orthopedic surgeon or a brain surgeon, then you're looking at like a 7-year residency after medical school and after undergrad too. And the process of residency is very like brutal. You're working like very, very high amount of hours every week. You're not getting paid a lot of money. You have a lot of student loans accumulating in interest, usually, unless you come from a very wealthy family. So that tacks on a lot of stress. And usually at that time in your life too, you're starting a family and you're having kids and you're getting married. So then you have all that added stress too. And you're kind of just like, for lack of better words, the bitch in the hospital, because like you're the resident and you're the trainee and you're learning. And like while it's not really like that, it like kind of is. I'm not in residency yet, so I really don't know. This is just like how I view it. And then sometimes after residency too, you can specialize and do a fellowship. And a fellowship is another 1 to 2 years of specific training. So let's say somebody wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. They did medical school, then they did orthopedic surgery residency. And then they were like, well, I want to do like kids only. So then they do a pediatric orthopedic surgery fellowship for 1 to 2 years. And then after that, they're like a real-time doctor. And then they, can do everything a doctor does and do surgeries by themselves and stuff like that. So it's a long process. I feel like what attracted it for me was the challenge of the whole thing. I just feel like I'm like a person that I have like a twisted addiction to like only doing things that totally take over my life. And like medicine is one of those things, right? It's just like it's everything, like it's a lot of time. Medical school is very stressful. I haven't been in it, but people say like it's like trying to drink water from a fire hose, like the amount of information that they throw at you. And residency is brutal. It's just like I just get attracted to stuff like that, man, and I like that about it. And I also like other things about medicine too, though, because like I did always want to be a nurse too. So I have the idea of helping people is very important to me. And like nothing really messes up your world more than like when a family member gets sick and you need to take them to get care, and being the person in the position to be able to physically help someone else's loved family member just seems like a very like it's an honor. It's an honor, right? So like that also appeals to me. And the addiction side of stuff too is like another thing that like I could see myself maybe getting into. When I was first getting sober, I was on a bunch of medication right away too, which kind of sucked. Like I'm a big believer in like behavioral stuff first. Like let's try like behavioral therapeutics before we put any kind of medicine in the body, because the brain is kind of just like still like a very unknown frontier. It's kind of like space or the ocean. It's just like we don't really know. Like we can get an X-ray of your body and we can physically show you that you broke a bone. Like we can see that, but there's no like way to like chemically measure your brain anatomy to say like, okay, your serotonin is low. It's all based off of like the patient's experience and the patient's like emotions, which is the best we got right now. So we got to work with that. But I do believe like medicine will become advanced enough to where we can do some kind of brain measurement that shows like, hey, like your dopamine receptors are like super low. Like we need to put you on like this SSRI, because like, it's going to be the same as an X-ray. It's going to show us exactly what's wrong, and then we can fix it. But like, I feel like right now, and I'm not a professional. I'm not even in school yet. So like, please take what I say with a grain of salt. But I just feel like it's a very like unknown frontier. So I have empathy is my point for the doctors that put me on a bunch of medication that like I probably wasn't supposed to be on. I understand, because it's hard, you know how hard like addicts are to deal with sometimes. Like we don't even like know ourselves. How are we supposed to tell a professional what's exactly going on with us? A lot of the times we're lying too, especially early on in recovery, about like what's really going on. So, and I was doing that too. And, that was probably part of the reason why they put me on a handful of medication every morning, and I was taking it and like falling asleep by noon, because I just had so many chemicals in my body. And, thank God, I don't take anything right now. And I've been able to like get off all that stuff. And as you get sober, you get more mental clarity and you sharpen up, and you don't need, I mean, people do, but luck, I ended up not. Um, But I could see myself, going into that for sure. I don't know what I want to do yet. A lot of it intrigues me, but addiction medicine is definitely like a popular field. I mean, it's a huge problem in the States right now. And even like, you could even couple that with like starting a sober living and like being a doc. And, just like there definitely is a need. There's a big need for that. I don't know. Maybe we need like more doctors that are in recovery, And that was a big thing for me too, because like to be straight up honest with you, man, like when I was applying into medical school, it's very competitive to get into medical school. And I wasn't able to talk about any of my recovery on my application. I actually made an application, and your application consists of essays and experiences. And like a lot of the reason I am where I am right now is recovery and sobriety. And I had a whole application crafted up of like my journey, basically a lot of stuff I told you, not as in as much detail, but just like, I'm sober. I had a problem. I don't drink. And this is how it's changed my life, basically. And I ran it by a bunch of like people, and they were like, you can't say this. And I was like, what do you mean? That's why I want to be a doctor. And they're like, you can't say this. It's a red flag. You're not going to get in. And I ran it by a couple people because I didn't believe the first people that told me that. So I ran it by some more, and they're like, look, like you have the running and you have the, I did a lot of research in undergrad too. I had other cards I could play. I didn't need to necessarily play the recovery card. And it was risky just because like, I will be able to, if I see this thing through, I will be able to write scripts one day, and I will wield a lot of power in that regard. And, I'm 5 years sober, but that's still like, could potentially, I could potentially slip up. And yeah, so that was like very disappointing to me in a way though, because I was like, that's just stupid why I can't talk about that. Like this is what got me here. Like, like can't they understand that? So I had to rewrite my whole application, man. And I didn't talk about it at all. And I didn't bring it up in an interview. And yeah, no medical school knows that part about me. Luckily I had other stuff I could talk about in replacement to that, and sold myself in other ways. But yeah, like just stuff like that. Like it's a stigma. It's a stigma, and it needs to change.
Yeah, it's a problem because, well, first off, like just because the other applicants may not be addicts, some of them probably are and hiding it.
Yeah.
That creates a culture of later on problems. But then it doesn't mean that they don't have problems in other areas, like other severe problems. And we've seen that within doctors, some of the stories that come out after years of them practicing, and like nasty stuff coming out about them, right? But so yeah, it's interesting. I think just the same as you. Like my hope is that someone like you, and there's many more like you, that would get into a field like that to help treat clinically people who are wanting to get sober or wanting to get physically fit or just wanting to get their life back on track, and not to be handed a boatload of medication and be handed a prescription of like, oh, you need to exercise 5 times a week. Here's how many hours we need you to put in. Go to zone 2. Here's what zone 2 looks like, blah, blah, blah. Like, and prescribe in great detail what an exercise regimen would look like to help with the dopamine receptors, or to help with the serotonergic system, and to help with those things before pounding in all the medications. Now, if they come to you and they have obvious signs of like that's clients. So if I'm working with a client that's been using meth for 15 years, and then a doctor sees them after they've been sober for 3 months and says, oh, you're bipolar, here's medication. It's like, first of all, you're in it. Like, you don't know, like, I don't understand why general practitioners are allowed to put out mental health scripts. I don't get it. They don't know anything about mental health. I can see that clearly because they'll prescribe benzodiazepines on a regular basis to clients who have heroin addiction. I'm like, what's happening? So, I guess my point is, to the dependency, it seems like, and part of this might just because doctors have too much on their caseload and they're frazzled, or it's an easy thing to just offload. But my hope is that there'd be more doctors out there with life experience like yours that can see through to a client's actual needs versus here's a Band-Aid for you, take this, and I'm not going to see you for the next 3 months, so I don't care. Your family does. Your family has to deal with you on whether this works or not for the next 3 months, but here's my prescription for you. So yeah, that's my problem with the medical field, amongst other things. But it's the general lack of real concern and care. I think that
Yeah.
versus just here's some medication. But yeah, so that's my hope for you from a medical standpoint. Is I hope you can kind of keep where you're at right now as a guiding compass for yourself, and you're going to serve a lot of people well. That'd be awesome.
Mhm.
Okay. Let's see. So like I said, I found you because of your motivational Instagram page.
Yeah.
And it's aesthetically nice. I like simplicity. So it's aesthetically, it's nice. It's like a lot of black and white, sort of as far as the front covers, so everything kind of leans in well. But the content is fantastic. There seems to be a lot of familiar faces within the content of what you're sharing. I'm getting distracted. My kid's outside my window right now, peeing right in front of me, just like, peeing outside. So I just got distracted. So where was I? Okay, so within the Instagram page, what got you to want to start this, to want to start a page that can be helpful to other people, even in just little 1 minute bite-sized clips that can be helpful to people? What got you to want to start that?
Yeah. So I was never really like a big motivational guy. Like even in early recovery, I wasn't like, I still just kind of, I worked out, but I just like, I wasn't like big into like the self-development and the self-help stuff until like later on down the road when I started running a lot. Actually, I would put on like a lot of audiobooks, a lot of podcasts. There was just like a lot of people that I really like fell in love with what they were saying, and I related to it. And like, when you're getting sober, you're in a state where like you can really implement a lot of feedback from the right people, because your life is just like I said, like one big blank canvas, so I was taking a lot of content in from just all over the place, trying to just get my hands on like whatever I found like interesting, whatever I felt like was really serving me. And dude, it's funny for a while because like I don't know if you have this, but like I'm like, I don't know, are you in a 12-step program at all, or
Yeah,
do you?
well, I practice the 12 steps, but I don't go to meetings anymore. I mean, I
Okay.
like
Yeah.
once in a while I'll go on a birthday or something.
Yeah,
I'll feel, I'm like, well, let me go in, it's whatever my 15th birthday, let's go on and
for
get
sure.
it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really go in anymore.
For sure, yeah, and I've started going less
Now,
too, like,
let
as I
me
have
clarify.
more. Yeah,
Sorry, David. Let me clarify real quick. So the first 3 years of my sobriety, it was crucial in terms of foundation for
for
me.
yeah,
It was
mhm,
crucial, especially the first year is so crucial. And then I
yeah,
began to taper off of meetings. And then by the time I was about 3 years sober, I had transitioned. The 12 steps helped me to transition into other avenues of life that
yeah, for
continue to
sure,
help me thrive. So just
for
to
sure.
clarify.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I've had similar experience with that. And but like like the place I was at my first year in recovery, the structured living, that we had to hit 2 meetings a day. And that was like really crucial for me too. Even though at the time it's like when you're forced to go to meetings, I feel like you take it way less seriously. Like I really started getting into meetings and step work when I was in LA, and I did a year sober out there, graduated that house, and then I wanted to go back to school. So I came back to Philly, didn't know anybody that was sober over here. So then I started going to meetings and really leaning on that because I was like, well, I need this now. And then when I was going to meetings to actually want to go to meetings and like want to like grow my fellowship and stuff like that, that's when I started really getting into that. But anyway, moral of the story is like you meet a lot of like-minded people and a lot of people that really change your life. And for whatever reason, like I'm in like 5 group chats with like different guys that I met, some in Cali, some in Philly, some in my hometown, like sober guys. And everybody that like is sober, I just feel like is a fiend for like good content, like whether it's spiritual literature, whether it's motivation, whether it's like a book, an audiobook, a podcast. Like my phone in the morning, dude, at 5 a.m. blows up like from sober people all over, like, sending a daily reading, sending a daily reflection, sending like a motivational picture, just a text of just like, hey man, glad you're in my life, like go kick ass today, like whatever. So I'm in all these group chats, right? And since like year 2 of my sobriety, I was like religious with my morning texts. I would send there's this book, I don't know if you're like spiritual or whatever. There's this book called Jesus Calling, and it's like was my favorite morning reading book, still is. And it's just like a passage. It's very short, it's like a paragraph. So I would send that out. And then I would send a motivational like snippet out too, whether it's like from a podcast I was watching. Sometimes I screen recorded a section of an audiobook. Sometimes it was just a picture. And I would send the spiritual literature, motivational content every morning religiously for years. And eventually I just got to a point where I was just like, I should just like make an account and just like put it on there. And that's how that account like came to be. And like, I knew it was going to like kind of work out because it's just something that I had been doing for so long and something that I was enthusiastic about and something I knew that I could pull content from like any which way, because I've gone through so many like self-help books, so many like podcasts, I had so much of an inventory that I knew like I could start this and like really never run out of like posts. So yeah, so gradually one day I was just like, I'm just gonna like see what happens and just put this out there, because I appreciate what you said about like my catalog, and like a lot of people were like kind of pushing me to do that too. They were like, dude, you should just start something. You like it, like you like it, and you should like just follow like that enthusiasm. So I did that, and yeah, it's just like the same thing I've been doing since I was 2 years sober, except now instead of sending it in group chats, I just put it on Instagram, and it's just stuff that I like. It's just stuff that I think is like fire and like people will like get down with. And yeah, I just really like, I just enjoy like starting my day off that way, and I guess I wanted to make a page that like other people could just follow me, and like, I'll provide the content and like, kind of just open up like that start to their day too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I like that. So that's cool. I didn't even think about that. That's good insight. So the way it kind of came up was just through an act that you were already doing, and so you're like, well, I might as well just put this out there. And about how long until other people other than your immediate circles and text threads began to take notice?
pretty quickly, like I just the algorithm on Instagram, I just feel like is like, if you put like big names on your page, like if you're someone like me that just says clips, like it'd be harder for me to blow up if I was just putting clips of me talking. But if you put clips of like Goggins, Peterson, like all these like big Elon Musk, like, and you just throw it out there and you know what you're doing with the hashtags, like, and you just make it nice and like pretty, you just throw it out, like it'll catch like pretty quickly. And then like when that started happening, like I was like, okay, like I'm getting followers and like I know my followers are like-minded to me. So then I started like a Twitter, and then I was kind of like, well, maybe I should just like personalize the account more. And I'm kind of just going with it. Like I don't really have any like big goals for it or expectations. I'm kind of just like, it's just like what I have been doing for so long, and like I think that's how the best things happen too. It's like it's usually like just, you just follow your gut, and like I don't try to like do anything like super big on it. Like I don't try to like I try not to stress too much out about it. I try not to spend too much time on it. Like I kind of just like want to just keep it very simplistic and very just what it's always been, which is just like a text. It's just a text message to other people. Like I'm just trying to keep it at that. So yeah, but I think it's very easy to grow on Instagram for sure if you're consistent.
I mean, what's the and enlighten me, dude? Like maybe we need to do this offline. Like help me. What's the hashtag situation? I mean, I'm not Jordan Peterson, but so I can't grow by. But like, here's a question I didn't know I was going to ask you. So to help me with my podcast grows on the Instagram, what's the insight you would give me? Like what's the hashtag game? I don't know.
All right, I would tell you this. This is what I would tell you. And I'm not a professional. This is just what I picked up. I would tell you to post at like a good time every day. You can't just be posting at like super early in the morning. I'm an early riser. So I liked to traditionally my text message would go out very early in the morning, which is even earlier on the West Coast. So you have to take into account like all different time zones too. So when I first started the account, I was posting at like 4 or 5 in the morning and like I wasn't getting any views, or I was getting like a few. But then I started like thinking and I was just like, maybe I should like wait till it's like 11 on the East and then post it, because that's like more of like a good time frame. And I feel like this isn't a fact, but I feel like Instagram prioritizes posts like that time of day more. So the time you post, I'd say, is important. And I made the mistake of posting too early before or too late. So that also the hashtags, I do like typically like 10 to 15. I've heard people that only do like 5. I just don't do that, but I think that does work too. My hashtags, like the first like 13 of my hashtags are very specific to the video. So if it's Peterson talking about like suffering or like finding meaning in suffering or something like that, then like I'm going to watch the video like 3 times maybe, and I'm going to pick like specific words that he uses, and I'm going to just specify as hard as I can in those first like 1 to 13 hashtags. So like it'd be like suffering, self-development, it'd be like Jordan Peterson. Maybe I'll like say 12 rules for life, because that's one of his books. If there's somebody else in the clip too, like maybe like Sean Ryan's interviewing him, then I'll Sean Ryan. My last 2 to 3 hashtags on the post are always like more like cliche, like just viral hashtags. So like you can literally just Instagram like viral, or like for you page like FYP, or like what else do I do, like explore page. I don't know why that works. Somebody told me to do that, maybe on like Reddit or something. I read it, and so I do that too. I don't know if that's like it definitely doesn't work every time. Like you definitely got to get lucky too, but that's typically what I do. And then also like keeping like a clean like page and a clean profile and everything. Like people appreciate that too, I think. And then, there's also like the aspect too of like Instagram, where it's like sometimes though you just got to like take the risk and do what you feel. Sometimes, dude, some like the stuff that I write and post on my Instagram that's done very well. Like I'll just be at the gym, dude, and I'll be like just in the zone. And like that's when all my thoughts come to me, is when I'm running or lifting. And like I'll just start thinking about something, and I'll just like catch this thought, and I'll write it down, and I'll expand on it. And then I'll like cut it up and try to make it short as possible. And I'll just write it down, and I just feel like it's so good. And like I post it right then, like even if it's 12 at night, I'll just post it, because like it's just an in the moment thing. And I feel like there's power to that. Like I do. Like it's not a power that you can explain, but like if you can just catch a thought like that and like just throw it out, like I don't know, for you it might be like you're up late at night editing a podcast clip, and you're just like, oh, like this is so good. Like I don't want to wait till tomorrow. Like I just want to post it now. Like that works too. Like you have to like go with your gut instinct too. Like it's, and that's real life advice too. Like not everything's like structured, not everything's like perfect, and like the world like optimization and all that stuff. It's just like sometimes you just gotta like go for it, man, and make your own path. So that's another piece of advice I'd say too.
Well, thank you for that. I'm going to take that and re-listen to everything you just said over and over. Okay. So then about this page that you have that offers great insight to people that are from other people, like, does it help you with some sense of self-accountability, or do you feel like a fraud at times when you're not following through with this image that you're trying to keep up for yourself, this identity that you've created for yourself, like how is that for you?
Yeah, it's hard, dude. I'm not perfect at all. I mess up all the time. Like there's aspects of my life that like aren't good right now that I need to work on. I'm a lot better, and I try to get better every day, but Yeah, there's a lot of things, like, just because I post doesn't mean I follow it, like, to the extent. Just because I post something, like, doesn't mean I, like, agree with it completely. Just because I post, like, a specific controversial person doesn't mean I agree with everything that they say. I feel like that's a big misconception about my page. People see my page and they see it so intense and, like, black and white and, like, do this or like you're gonna die. Like, it's just like a part of me. Like, it's an isolated part of me that I feel like has served me. And like I feel like I just wanted a space to like put those thoughts. And I feel like people get it mixed up because like they don't really have a chance to actually meet me and like talk to me like you are right now. And like I'm not always like that. Like I'm not always like I'm intense a lot, but like I'm I'm it's not like totally, like, taken over my life. Like, it's a piece of me. I have a lot of stuff I post that, like I'll say this, like, that has really changed my life. As cliche as it sounds, it's like a minute video. You're like, "How can that fucking change your life?" Dude, it's changed my life. A lot of those little videos, man, I would have on repeat in the gym. If I was having a bad day, dude, I can name a couple, right? I could probably regurgitate the exact wording to you. I've listened to it so much on repeat.
Let's do it. Let's go into it. What are some of the ones, like the ones that stand out to you that has been life affirming but life changing?
Yeah. There's one on Peterson, and Jordan Peterson's he's talking about lying, and he's talking about his therapeutic practice, his therapeutic experience with clients. And he said that it's scary because he's never seen anybody get away with anything, not even once. And he's talking about like lying and cheating and taking shortcuts. And dude, video speaks to me. It speaks to me every time I try to do some sketchy shit. I think of that video. I'm like, you never get away with anything, not even once. Like I say it to myself, like straight, like, and it shuts down the thought right away, because I'm not perfect. I get thoughts to like take shortcuts or, you know, sneak whatever, like easy way out. Like we're human. We all get those. And like, I literally, that video like plays in my head. Another video there's one on Justin Waller. I don't know if you know who that is. He's like not really that big, but and again, he's very controversial. I don't agree with everything he says, but I agree with some stuff. And, he's talking about like a girlfriend. And, back in the day, like when I was like, sobriety and like relationships are hard. So especially if you're young. So, I struggle with that. And dude, in the gym some nights I would just play that on repeat. And it's just him saying like, dude, like you want a girlfriend, but like you're not even fit. Like you don't even have like purpose. You don't even have like an aim in your life. You're not making like enough money. Like no girl's gonna like you right now. Like you need to get your shit together. Like you need to do that and then they'll like you, and like I would be in the gym and I would just be listening to that some nights. And it's therapeutic for me. Not everybody's like that, I guess. Like that's just like there's just some things that kind of just speak to me that, I just really find like a strong sense of just like I just relate to it. And I can see like where they're coming from and like it just makes sense to me, some of it. And the other thing too is like a lot of people in my life are like very like they hold me accountable and they're not scared to like hurt my feelings. And that's how I want my life. It sucks sometimes to be the person to always get like called out, but I call other people out too. And I tell my friends and I tell my family, I'm like, look, it's a two-way street. If I'm doing something wrong, you tell me. And I would rather people hurt my feelings than like step on the grave of my untapped into potential down the road. And I'm very clear about that. So like when my sister's like a runner too, she's like a beast. And if she sees me like posting something and like, like something about like Peterson, like keeping your room clean, let's just say, and she'll like text me and she'll be like, I bet your room's like a piece of shit right now and your bed's not made. And I'll be like, okay, like she's right. Some days she's right. Some days my room doesn't look great. Some days I don't make my bed in the morning. And yeah, but like, it's not about being perfect. It's about trying, So like that's that. And I like that. I like having people like that in my life. And, she texts me that and I I clean my room or I do what I got to do to like, kind of like, I don't want to be a hypocrite, So yeah.
Okay, give me one more thing that you feel like is, insight that you've got from someone else that has just been something that has continued to motivate you.
I'll give you like two more.
Okay.
So another thing is, so out of all the stuff I've watched is, I'll say this. So hard work, not hard work. I think a lot of Instagram right now is big like hustle culture. And another misconception about my page a lot of the time is people see my page and they think I'm like promoting hustle. I'm trying to promote the opposite of hustle culture. And like, let me explain, because a lot of the stuff that I write about is like, you need to find like what you love. Like you need to find like what sings to you. And when you find that, like everything gets so simple. Like it doesn't get easy, but it gets simple. Like when I narrowed my scope down to like, I want to be a doctor, I want to be fit. Like I have these like pillars in my life that I'm chasing every day. And it gives me, like we were talking about, purpose and fulfillment. And it's not hard work a lot of the time. Like it's a big misconception. It's not. I try to envision myself working through my heart instead of working through my mind. Because if you work through your heart, you will not tire, right? Like the mind needs rest. People like to pretend that it doesn't. When we go to sleep at night, your brain turns off so it can regenerate, but your heart continues to pump. Your heart needs to always pump. It's always on. It never tires. So like people like on Instagram will be like my work at, like they try to just like top your work ethic, but it's like not really about that. Like the people that are killing it and doing the best, like artists, athletes, entrepreneurs, like people at the top of their game, they're not hard working. Like don't get me wrong, like it's not easy all the time. It doesn't just happen. Like there is an aspect of like challenge and difficulty to it, but they're working through their heart. They're working towards a purpose. They're working toward a mission. And it's not about like beating other people. Like it's not about like pushing it. Like it's just a desire that they have. Like they've made their life one giant subtraction problem, and like they've found their thing. And like when you find your thing, like like I knew, like mine's like medicine. Like I know, like that saved me. Like it just gave me so much, and it gave me like something to shoot for, and it gave me like a person that I want to turn into, and it gave me a road, and it gave me a journey, and like just everything I feel like I do, even if it's not related to medicine at all, it is related to medicine. Like running is not related to medicine at all, but like it is related to medicine for me. When I do 100-mile races, it's to prepare me for medicine. Like everything is for that. And like I understand that it sounds like very extreme and very like intense, but like it's just like it's just this concept of like just finding what you love and doing it, and like not being afraid to like look different in the eyes of other people, and like not being afraid to not be normal. And all these guys that are like top of their game have mastered that. Like they found their thing. They found what they were put here to do, and they work through their heart and they don't work through their mind. That's one thing I would say. The other thing I would say that's very, very interesting, I do a newsletter. I do it every week. And my newsletter is called I Want to Be a Heavy Hitter, because like I just wanted to make it as authentic as I could. And that's what I want to be, like somebody that's like a heavy hitter, like the people that I post about every day, and the people that
Can you just say it again for the people listening? So I want to be a heavy hitter.
I want to be a heavy hitter, but it's actually spelled I wanna be a heavy hitter, because I just wanted to be authentic with it. And it's 10 topics every week. And usually it's pulled from like great entrepreneurs, great athletes, great artists that were like, could be still alive, might be dead, people that were at like the top of their game and changed the world. Like they did something that changed the world, like through their work and through their desire and dedication and passion. They brought something to the world that the world has never seen before, and they changed it. And dude, it's so interesting because I'm writing this newsletter, and like I didn't like think about any of this at the time. Like I just thought of it as motivation. I just thought of it as like I want to study these people because I want to be like them. And I'm studying some of these people like Walt Disney, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, just like random people that like brought something to the world that like you hear their name and your mind automatically clicks to like what they brought to the world. And it's so funny, dude, because as an addict and an alcoholic, I'm reading about these people. I'm listening to podcasts about these people. I'm listening to the way that they think and the way that they like they think about their work and the way that they like think about themselves. And it's all just like one day it hit me. It was just, it's all alcoholic thinking. Like these guys are like addicted to what they do. And they're addicted to, like, Steve Jobs was addicted to making the thing that's in your pocket right now. And he was so addicted to it that he made it so good that everybody has one now, and it changed the world. Did it bring negatives to the world? Like, yeah, like for sure. But like it's made a lot of things like easier, and like it's just like a beautiful piece of machinery that like it's like was impossible 100 years ago to make, you know? And like, dude, it is a common stereotype in all these people, and 99% of these people that I've studied, they all think like an addict thinks. They're just not thinking about it toward a drink or a drug. And I'm going to read some of these to you so you can see what I'm talking about, because I just when you see this, you can't unsee it, dude. You can't. So this is George Lucas, maker of Star Wars. So he made the movie Star Wars, which changed the world, in my opinion. I mean, most people know who Star Wars is. And this is from a biography on him. And he says, movies were my addiction. We were passionate about movies, always scrambling to get our next fix. So he's like, you know, the movie is what he's hooked to, right? This is Edwin Land, founder of Polaroid. Fun fact, Steve Jobs, this was like Steve Jobs' hero. And a lot of the stuff that Steve Jobs did was because of Edwin Land. And Polaroid was a huge, huge camera company back in the day.
It was like
And
the only.
yeah. Dude, guy's a pioneer, right? So this is from a biography of him. Did you know I'm an addict? I'm addicted to one good experiment per day. If I don't get it, the world goes dull, becomes unreal. This is Walt Disney. Walt Disney is one of my favorites, dude. He was such a badass, and he changed the world, and he was so good at what he did. So founder of Disney, Walt Disney. Animation, and this is a biography, somebody else talking about Walt. Animation provided him with complete control, an escape, and a world of his own where he could be the only power. Considering the completion it gave him, one would say that animation almost took the place of religion for Walt. This is Bill Gates, founder of Microsoft. And this is someone else talking about the way that he was with Microsoft. It was the last thing that he thought about before he went to sleep, and the first thing that he thought about when he woke up in the morning. Microsoft was his obsession. Right? So like I'm writing this newsletter, and I'm seeing like all these just like common, like addictive thinking, like stereotypes in every person that I'm studying. And I'm just like, dude, that's crazy, because like I think the same way that these think. Most of my friends in recovery think the same exact way that these guys think. Like we just have it channeled in the wrong direction. Like, but if I take this, and that's like exactly what I did unconsciously when I was like trying to get into medical school, when I was getting into ultra marathon running, when I was doing all these things, like I took this like addictive personality that I had that was once channeled in a terrible direction, and I just pointed it in a different direction towards something that and this is the key, something that serves others, that's not self-serving, but it serves others. And I pointed it in that direction, and I'm convinced, dude, that it's a superpower. And that is a takeaway that I've gotten from my page, but that's also become like the message that I'm trying to push out through my page. Like I get so excited when young guys reach out to me that are trying to get sober or have a problem. They'll DM me or whatever. I'm just like, dude, like you have no idea, like you're sitting on a gold mine of a brain. Like not everybody thinks like us. Not everybody can get obsessed with things. Like I get obsessed with stuff, dude. Like I get lost. I lose track of time. Like I forget to go to the bathroom, you know, like that's like something that's not normal that other people don't have. And like these guys reach out to me and they're like trying to get sober. And I'm just like, dude, like if you can get sober and you can figure that part out, you can do whatever else you want. Like the loftiest goal ever, dude. I'm telling you, like you have a brain that is like, has an obsession complex in it. And has this addiction complex in it that like you can point it towards something that can serve others and change the world. So that's like my big thing right now on my page, is like trying to like promote that, because I think it's just interesting. And I just came across I came across it, and I was shocked, dude. I was shocked. Like I wasn't directly looking for it. It just kind of came up, and I was just like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's something you see with a lot of heavy hitters. Arnold Schwarzenegger just had a book come out too called Be, what is it? I can't remember. It just came out this year, but like Be Helpful or something like that. And same thing, right? Same mentality. So there's this aspect, and it connects even within other branches of mental health. There's like this connecting thread within branches of mental health, whether it be OCD, whether it be cutting, whether it be eating disorders, whether it be substance abuse addiction. What, like, there's this common thread in there of obsessive thinking, right? And so depending on childhood experiences, adult experiences, traumas, all of the above, depending on culture, depending on mindset, depending on all these different factors, genetics, that might have helped you gain a certain liking toward one version of all the different coping skills that are out there and obsess towards that one version. You're saying replacement. You're saying replace it. Don't leave it empty, because that's going to leave you feeling empty. But like in the rooms, you hear about it being called this spirit-sized hole or something. I can't remember this term, but like this hole that now is just left gaping open and needing to be filled with something. And so you can use spirituality to help with that, and I personally believe that helps significantly. But then there's also purpose that needs to be derived through, like you were mentioning at the beginning of our conversation, identity, right? Because you like, identity is completely vague and completely clouded. It's foggy when you're first getting sober. I call it like this grimy time, early sobriety. And so as you're trying to identify who you are and what you're going to be in the world, having it shape course towards something that gives you purpose and value is going to be a game changer. And also, like you even said when we first started sharing, you were like, like, I'm still adjusting here. I'm still growing and trying to find my way. And that's the answer too, is this openness to not put a period at the end of something, but maybe a semicolon, and keep going, and just keeping it going and keeping it going in another direction. So for somebody, that might look like 10 years of entrepreneurship on a particular business. And then they've come to their end with that business. They're like, I feel dead inside working in this business now. Like I'm just done. I'm ready to move on in another direction. And so find that purpose in another direction. So yeah, that's great insight, man. So what protocols do you use to try to help you with consistency? Whether it be a morning protocol, whether it be an evening protocol, or all of the above. What kind of protocols are you using in your life to help you with consistency?
I think, like, again, I'm going to go back to like doing things that like you find enjoyment in. So like, running for me is like just something that, it sucks. Don't get me wrong. Running sucks like a lot, most of the time, but there are times where like I really do like just enjoy throwing on the sneakers and putting on music or putting on a podcast or putting on nothing at all. Now, but that being said, there are times I like don't want to do it at all. And it's just, for me right now, it's just, I've been doing it for so long that I feel like it's just so ingrained in me. But when I first started, doing this stuff and working out on a daily basis, a big thing was being around people that were also doing it. And I couldn't imagine like trying to like run like 80-mile weeks by just like myself like 3 years ago. Like that just would have been impossible. Like I was around people at college that were running high mileage weeks, and we all just kind of fed off each other and got motivated off each other. And we were a team too. So like we knew that like we were competing together and we didn't want to let the other person down. So yeah, I think it's a lot of that. And I think it's just a lot of like, what's your aim in life? Like, what do you want to be? Do you want to be like, do you want to be fit? Okay, well then we're going to have to do this, this, and this every single week to get to this goal. You know, I just can think of stuff like that. I can view the future kind of, and I'm just like, I want to be this specific weight, or I want to be like in this specific fitness by this time that I have to do this race. I need to put in the work right now. And I just have a lot of experience too with like what the work brings. Like I'm sure you do too. It's just like you feel better when you're running every day. Like I just feel better. I feel more alive. My free time is better spent. Like I don't just sit around, and like I just like who I am better when I do something hard every day.
Mhm. And so I know you have an ultra coming up. I saw on your Instagram.
Yeah.
I think what, in like 6 days or something like that this weekend. Is it this
Yeah.
weekend? And now,
Yeah.
are you nervous, or are you right now still in this kind of cool place where you're like, nope, not too nervous until maybe the night before? Like, how are you dealing with that?
I never really get nervous before ultras. I used to get super nervous before collegiate races because they're a lot shorter. So like if you mess up, it's more like not comebackable. Like an ultra is so long, you can kind of like have a bad like couple miles and like still be able to revive yourself. I don't really right now is a very weird time in my life because I'm about to go to medical school, and like I'm just enjoying my life so much right now because I know medical school is going to be really hard, and I'm very ecstatic that I got in, and I've kind of just been riding this high, and I know I'm not going to be able to do a lot of running in medical school. Well, I shouldn't even say that. I don't know what my running is going to look like in medical school. I'm sure I'll still be, you know, working out a lot, but right now I have the luxury of working out like 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day if I want to, and, you know, running 100 milers and running 50 milers and traveling to run races. So, I would say I'm more so like excited for it. I honestly felt like I needed to do another 100 before I started medical school because I've done one before, and like, dude, I came out of it and I just felt so strong mentally. And I feel like it like changed like a lot about me too, like very instantly. That's the weird thing about ultras. Like I feel like most achievements in life, like your self identity kind of lags behind reality. So like you get like a really good job, let's say, and like the job gives you like a lot of like completion with your identity, but the completion doesn't catch up to you until like 6 months later when you've been working the job for a while. It's like there's kind of like a lag. But with ultras, dude, like I finish an ultra and there's like no lag at all. I'm just like, wow, like there was so much in that that like I need to unpack like right now. And yeah, so I felt like I needed to run one. I just got done running like I've been running like a ton of ultras recently because I know I'm not going to be able to run them. So I'm just trying to get it all out of my system right now. And I was trying to look for 100 to do near around my area, and there was like they were all like 6 hours away, and they were all like $300 for a bib. And I
Yeah,
was just like,
it's getting
I was
so
just like, fuck,
expensive, dude.
dude, I know. And I was like, fuck that. So I called my one buddy who's like crazier than I am, and he's like 60. And I called him up and I was like, hey man, like I know this is a long shot, but is there any way you think that you'd be able to run you would want to run 100 miles or some distance of 100 miles with me, like just down the street, basically, like where we're from? And not only did he say yes, but he said that he's actually done it before. So he knows exactly where we're running. During COVID, I guess he did like a virtual 100 miler. Like
Nice.
the guy's epic, dude. And I was like, all right, perfect. Like, let's do it this day. So we're gonna pitch an aid station out of his garage, and we're just gonna go at it for 20 hours. And hopefully by the end
That's
of it,
so cool. Yeah.
I get it all out of my system because this will
So
be
I
my
get
last one.
where I live. There's a trail that connects one way out where you get about 30-ish, a little over 30 miles. I've been like connecting this trail and kind of figuring out because I would like to do it like as a race out here because there's no race. Um, so I've been kind of putting it together. And anyway, so on this Saturday, which is going to be 107 out, I'm gonna like self sustain that, do a self sustained run with that. Um, but yeah, like these kind of self-imposed ultras are they're pretty cool, man. There's something to them. Like you don't, like if you're able to kind of put it right and either put down some cash, water stations here or there, or try to, or have a nice enough loop to be able to pull it off. Like the track is awful, but man, having that aid station there, it's just on a loop. You don't need anything, so you can go out to that track and put in 30 miles and just be have your own aid station. So that's really cool. So yeah, being able to do that is great. I'm going to have to send it to you after. I was just looking it up as you were talking. There's this doctor that he's like this fit doctor or whatever, but like when he was going to medical school, he somehow prioritized his physical fitness while doing it, while he was seeing all of his peers, go through the terrible regime of everything that you talked about earlier, of how it just kind of takes away your life from you. You're living off of fast food and critiques, right? Like people critiquing you, and fast food is what you're living off of. But anyway, I'll have to send you that guy's information, because I felt like he had some really good advice, and how he helped other doctors while he was going through it. And now he's just kind of left the medical profession, and he does like personal training at a very high level for people.
It's not Peter. Yeah. It's not Peter Attia, is it?
No, it's not Peter Attia. But he's also fantastic. Peter Attia is much more well known than this guy.
Okay. Yeah, definitely send that to me.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I feel like we got a lot out of this. So is there anything you feel like we missed, or anything you wanted to go over?
Not really, man. It's just been great to meet you. And I mean, that's basically me right now. I mean, staying sober, running really far, and going into medical school, and excited about that. And I don't know if I could just like say one thing. I would just say, like, if you're young and you're trying to get sober and change your life, and you just want something bigger than like the normal like 20-year-old bar scene frat party life, like, it's out there. It's not just me doing it. All my friends are doing it, and they're kicking ass. And it's just, if you feel like you're meant for something more than that, then definitely like do it and commit to it, and just throw away your old life, and just search for something more, because I promise you, if you don't do it, it will eat you alive. And I think like that's the message that I want to put out to the world too, that like there's another way of living, and going through your 20s, these years that are supposed to be like big social years and like partying and all this stuff. Like, it doesn't have to be that at all. In fact, like, I think that it's a lot better not being that, just from my own personal experience. And I just want to be a beacon of light and a beacon of hope, along with like my other friends that I hang out with a lot, that there's just more to life than that. And there's a lot more out there, and you can feel good about yourself, and you don't have to like wake up every morning and feel like a piece of shit. And there's another way of life if you're struggling.
Yeah, I think it's an important message, dude. And I love the work that you're doing. It's really cool being able to meet the man behind the page, and see the humility that you carry. Because like you said, that you could just see the page and see you as the same way as people see Goggins, which is unfortunate, because
I know, like
incredible human being, right? And so you can see the guy and just be like, oh no, like, and think all these bad thoughts, but like, that's you. Like, when you think these bad thoughts, that's something that's dirty and gross within you. And so, and anyway, so I'm even though I know that going in and coming into this, like, it's really cool kind of seeing the humility that you carry about things, and also your desire just to continue to chase, like, in a very fierce way, the opposite of what you were doing, not so long ago, 5 years ago or whatever. So yeah, great job. And yeah, I look forward to continuing to see you on your journey from the medical school experience. And, you know, if this podcast continues on in the future, maybe we'd have you on and continue to share some of your insights from that perspective. That'd be cool.
Let's stay in touch for sure. Yeah, man, appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity and you taking time out of your day to talk. It's been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Patina'd podcast. There are other shows that emphasize resilience, but my intent is to normalize personal development through embracing challenge by interviewing the common man and woman, the person that you and I can relate to. If you are someone who wants to soak up the insights of normal people doing extraordinary things, please subscribe. If you know somebody who is overwhelmed by fear and complacency, please share this podcast with them. I'm your host, Kenny Hill, and I run a private practice near Sacramento, California called Recovery Hill. My website is in the description tab along with my social media links. The intro music was Two in the Back, performed by Sunday at Slams on Blue Dot Sessions.
Familiar face, we wear our struggles, no trace erased. In vulnerability, we find our place. Rust is gray, not decay. We're chasing shadows in the light, embracing failures, wings take flight. Within the darkness, we find our sight. The Patina'd